Welcome. My name is Markus Wesaw. I will be your facilitator for this hazard communication presentation. This presentation is going to focus on the Global Harmonization System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals that has recently been adopted and introduced as regulatory code by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. The discussion of this important occupational safety and health topic has been broken up into several different modules in order to cover the majority of the material. In this first presentation, we are going to introduce the participant to the essential overview and requirements of the hazard communication standards. I want to make a note here that you will hear me say HAZCOM GHS, HAZCOM, or simply GHS throughout the presentations, and this is merely an abbreviation for Hazard Communication Global Harmonization System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. Let's go ahead and start with this quick overview. The Hazard Communication GHS presentation objectives are as follows. To introduce the major hazard communication changes to the participant, participants will be able to identify GHS pictograms. Participants will recognize the new labeling requirements for chemicals in the workplace. Participants will understand how signal words are used and what they mean. Participants will be able to list the three hazard classifications, which are physical, health, and environmental. Understanding that many of you may have had a hazard communication course in the past, this presentation and the following modules have been geared towards adding upon that content previously learned while simultaneously introducing each participant to the major changes involved with these regulations. It is incredibly important to realize the fundamental purpose of this particular training. That is, hazard communication can be considered the right to know standard because it involves an employee's right to know about the chemical hazards present within a given workplace. Considering that this fundamental premise is the spirit of the law, this and all future presentation modules should be viewed in that light. In the past, the chemical hazards present within the workplace were communicated to employees in a much different way than they are under the Hazard Communication GHS regulations. Now, we will be utilizing pictograms that portray specific hazards pertaining to chemicals. Each participant should ultimately be very familiar with these pictograms and their meanings. Chemical labels have long been a major component of the hazard communication standard, and this is still the case. However, how labels are used, presented, and created must be in accordance with the Hazard Communication GHS standards. Employees should learn how signal words are used in conjunction with labels and safety data sheets. Similarly, there are three hazard classifications or categories of chemical hazards that we will be discussing in order for employees to determine how chemical hazards may impact them in the workplace. Once again, GHS is an acronym for Global Harmonization System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, which has been incorporated into the Hazard Communication Standards. For a moment, though, let us turn our attention to the word harmonization. Harmonization is a term best characterized as a consistent, orderly, or pleasing arrangement of components or a form of congruity. If we take a moment to evaluate hazard communication in terms of the spirit of the regulation, we can understand that the word harmonization pertains to a consistent and orderly method of communicating chemical hazards to employees. More to the point, the primary aim of incorporating the GHS system is to create a simple standardization in how we communicate chemical hazards to employees. Therefore, the GHS system will utilize a standardized labeling format, a 16-section standardized safety data sheet format, and requirements on the communication of health, physical, and environmental hazards. As a reminder, employees have a legal right to know about the hazards pertaining to chemicals present within the workplace. The GHS system is simply the delivery method in communicating these hazards to employees in a simple and easy to understand format. It is likely that some participants will find the new system a little difficult to learn at first, and others may catch on rather quickly. But the GHS system will probably be the predominant method of communicating chemical hazards internationally in the very near future. Learning how chemical hazards are standardized and communicated will be a benefit to all employees. The Hazard Communication GHS system is much more complex in nature than other systems used in the past. However, the more salient points of what is new with GHS can be summarized into three major statements. Firstly, hazards are now classified into three categories, which are physical, health, and environmental. How chemicals will be labeled and the labeling criteria will involve the use of signal words, pictograms, hazard statements, and precautionary statements, all of which are designed in a standardized format whereby each employee may thoroughly understand the risks and hazards of a particular chemical. Finally, many participants have been introduced to the acronym MSDS in the past. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where we now abbreviate our abbreviations. The term MSDS is no longer relevant and has been replaced with the acronym SDS, which stands for Safety Data Sheet. At the time of this recorded presentation, many chemical manufacturers have yet to produce a safety data sheet that follows the new mandatory 16-section format, although some indeed have. For those who aim to transition their company from the MSDS to the new SDS 16-section format, there may be some trouble in acquiring safety data sheets for every chemical used in the workplace. Therefore, considerable time and effort may be needed in order to completely update the inventory of material safety data sheets to the new 16-section safety data sheet format. This occupational safety and health standard is intended to comprehensively address the issue of classifying the potential hazards of chemicals and communicating information concerning hazards and appropriate protective measures to employees. Classifying the potential hazards of chemicals and communicating information concerning hazards and appropriate protective measures to employees includes provisions for developing and maintaining a written hazard communication program for the workplace, including lists of hazardous chemicals present, labeling of chemicals in the workplace, as well as containers of chemicals being shipped to other workplaces, preparation and distribution of safety data sheets to employees and downstream employers, and finally, the development and implementation of employee training programs regarding hazards of chemicals and protective measures. This presentation has been produced by MW Consulting, LLC. Feel at liberty to contact us directly. Please proceed to the next module regarding the Hazard Communication GHS system. Thank you.